There is absolutely no reason to come down from this high that Washington Wizards fans are feeling after landing the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NBA Draft. Joe House joins Locked On Wizards today.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Alex R., and you're listening to Locked On Wizards.
DC family, you're locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. My name is Ben Strober, and I'm a credentialed media member covering the Washington Wizards alongside my good friend, the DC sports content creating savant, Abdullah. Ayubi. We are your Washington Wizards coverage 5 days a week, plus at this point now that the team got the number 1 overall pick. And today we are joined from the Ringer Podcast Network, Joe House. House, nobody loves the Wizards more than you. I don't think, especially not on the Ringer Podcast Network. You've been trashed every single year by one of your best friends, Bill Simmons, and this time you finally get to celebrate a little bit. Have you come down from the elation that everyone has been feeling after finding out the Wizards would pick first on Sunday?
Fellas, it's a great time to be alive. Thank you for having me on. Why would I come down? We're number one. We're number one until that pick has been made. And even after we make that pick, we're still number one. No, I haven't lost any of my enthusiasm, any of the euphoria from that miracle moment on Sunday afternoon. Immediately, of course, attention shift because nobody can pay attention to anything for longer than 10 seconds to wild questions like, would Washington trade the pick? Would Washington consider Peterson over AJ Dybantsa? I mean, and so we're immediately in the info war moment. We shift gears, but I love being in this position with this Washington franchise where the thing to do is just put your phone down, let it sit there, and let's see if it rings. Let's see if the phone rings. Who wants to call Daddy? Because Daddy's just sitting right here on top, ready to do great things for the organization. But if you want to call, the phone's sitting right here.
Completely agree. We hold all the cards, House. Going back to Sunday, your overall reaction, the emotion, myself and a lot of Wizards fans were already happy that this team was going to land a top 4 pick, knowing the tier 1 guys in this draft. But just thinking that going into commercial break that you weren't the pick at 5, and on top of that, House, Indiana doesn't have a first-round pick. I mean, that's got to be sweet.
I feel a tiny bit bad for Indiana, but I mean, Kevin Pritchard, their GM, is having to go onto Twitter immediately after the draft concludes to apologize.
I've never seen that.
Hey, buddy, how about this? Just do the risk assessment when you're sitting down and mapping out the trade with the Clippers. You can do that. You can go ahead. There are odds. There's mathematical probabilities. What is the idea behind, protecting 5 to 9? How does that make any sense whatsoever? There's lots of ways that under the simple rules of mathematics, the pick could have fallen into that zone, notwithstanding their own tremendous efforts to tank. I was privileged to attend a Wizards-Pacers game in the latter stretches of the season, and it was truly magical. Shout out to Jay Huff, who really, needs to be in the dunk contest. But the Pacers tanked their asses off and got absolutely nothing for it. Other than Zubac, congrats, I guess.
I don't want to even think about that game. Talon Peter, I still have a major disdain for that guy. I think he absolutely does not belong on a basketball floor, but I won't use this opportunity to slander him too much because I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive, House, about my basketball team, which for a lot of my life, Abdullah's life, your life, you are much older than us, and there hasn't been anything worth a damn for a long time to be excited about. What does this moment, having the first pick once again for the first time in 16 years, what does it do for this city, for this fan base to finally feel like things are going to be rejuvenated around here again behind a potential superstar player?
So for a rare, sincere moment, it really does kind of change the paradigm, right? It is a promise fulfilled for a rare second here in Washington. It is potential fulfilled. The group of decision makers for Washington in the form of Will Dawkins and Michael Winger convinced successfully the ownership group that the true path to improving the franchise's fortunes, the franchise's ability to compete in the modern NBA is to be as bad as possible for a couple years, to aggregate picks, to pull together assets, to build a pool of assets. And to the great credit of the Leonsis family and all the folks in the organization, they agreed, they subscribed to it. They told the fan base what the plan was going to be, and then they executed that plan in a magnificent way. And I want to say this again, I'm going to be sincere about this. I like the idea of Washington giving a whole bunch of two-way guys, G League guys, an opportunity to come play NBA basketball. Call me a weirdo. I like seeing Juju Reese. I hope Juju Reese, finds a place in the NBA. He got the opportunity to come get real NBA minutes against real NBA players because, Washington directionally was just trying to explore roster building is the polite way I'll put it. But we got to see some guys. Alondas Williams came and had his absolute very best NBA game. He'll forever have that moment. Was it against the Magic? I don't recall.
No, against the Pacers.
It was against the Pacers. How could I forget?
He had 25 points.
Yes, that's
25 points.
Right. So there are these little stories that go along the way. You don't have to be super cynical and say, "Oh, it's an abomination what Washington did." No, there are stories along the way. Sharif Cooper got a whole bunch of run, like guys that are trying to make it in the NBA. They got the NBA spotlight shown on them. But to the larger point about the moment that Washington is going to enjoy, we're going to have some national games. Washington Wizards are going to play some games on of some prominence in prime time. Maybe even a Sunday night game on NBC.
Christmas house, maybe.
Wow, let's not get Abdullah. Let's not get crazy. A lot of it will depend on what ultimately comes with Anthony Davis, whether that becomes more asset building or whether he shows up and auditions for whoever his next team is going to be. But like the potential for the team being an interesting team, a competitive team, it's all there, and the spotlight will shine. The NBA spotlight will shine on Washington.
Yeah. Real quick, just a quick question. You don't want to file a class action lawsuit against the Wizards? Somebody I heard suggested that. I'm not gonna say any names, but I heard somebody suggested that the fans file a class action lasuit for an abomination of the sport. I don't know if you saw that, House, but I just want to make sure you're not interested in that.
I don't know who is saying such silly. Did the fans of Oklahoma City do that? Did the fans of San Antonio do that?
Exactly.
Did the fans of Detroit do that? Who did Simmons say that? Who said it?
No, it was a DC lifer in Tony Kornheiser.
It was Kornheiser, of course. I mean,
Tony Kornheiser.
As respectful as possible. I love TK. I've had the great good fortune of spending time with him. Sometimes they get things wrong. He's just wrong. It's okay. It's fine. I mean, you just have to pay attention to the last 10 years of the NBA and the incentive structure of the league. If you want to file a class action lawsuit, you would file it against the league. The league created the incentive structure by which teams can improve themselves by being bad in exchange for getting high draft picks. The league came up with that construct, not the Washington Wizards. The fact that the Wizards executed that plan so well that the league decided, and I guess you'd have to give credit to Utah as well, it had to change the rules because these teams were the Pacers, the Wizards, I guess the Brooklyn, all of those teams together trying to improve themselves in the manner in which the league itself has said, here is the most direct path to improve yourself. It's to get a high draft pick and land superior talent through the draft. It's a tried and true method. Nobody really wanted to change the rules after Wemby went to San Antonio. Nobody wanted to change the rules after Cade Cunningham went to Detroit. I understand exactly why it makes sense that we need to do something to have competitive games in March. But I don't think that Washington's execution of its own plan is a reason for criticism.
And it's amazing how they got the first overall pick right before they change everything. So what a way to send off. You brought up the fact about the reports of potentially trading down with Utah because the whole connection with AJ Dybantsa in the state of Utah. What do you think that trade package should look like? And should Washington even consider it?
If the most common version of that trade that I've seen consists of Ace Bailey, the number 2 overall pick, and one of Utah's firsts. And Utah has a whole slew of firsts that they've gotten from other teams, through doing the same kind of asset building that Washington has embarked upon its own self. If you get a future first and Ace Bailey and the number 2 overall pick, I think you got to think about that very, very, very seriously, because you are getting in the form of Ace Bailey and that number 2 pick, and you put that alongside the 6 first-round picks that Washington has had under the Winger Dawkins era, most of whom look like guys that are going to be able to play in this league, plus the mentorship of Trae Young, who I think is going to sign an extension. And we'll see wherever Anthony Davis, that probably translates into more assets. But, man, it feels to me like a 2-for-1. If you're giving me 2 lottery picks and Ace Bailey for all the acclaim that he properly generated in advance of last year's draft, I would seriously consider it. I'm not dismissing that out of hand.
All right, well, let's weigh these top prospects, Cam Boozer, AJ Dybantsa, and Darryn Peterson. Who do we want? What are the strengths, the weaknesses of all these guys? Let's get the answer to some of those questions here when we come back. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters that much more. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer for you to get started today. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. That's just $5. Again, $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That is right. Turn $5 and $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because it makes everything more exciting. Everything you need is right there in one place for you. You can check stats, you can check trends, matchups, and everything that makes your experience a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props, just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every single game throughout the NBA postseason. It's a really easy app to navigate as well, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish every single night. So head to FanDuel.com to get started today. FanDuel, play your game. House, this debate that everyone is having amongst Wizards fans right now, Jazz fans probably as well, and everyone in the top 3 in between, who should the team draft number 1 overall? The prospects, of course, are so tantalizing. I think 3 of the guys are potentially deserving of the first overall pick, but obviously this is a very important choice for the Wizards. As it stands right now, do you lean one way on one of these guys as your top guy?
I do. I'm in the camp of AJ, Darryn, Cam. I think that is not an uncommon ranking from what I've seen. I do see some of the experts out there making the case for different guys and why, like Jonathan Gavoni likes Peterson. That's fine. I saw somebody advancing an argument for Cam. That's totally fine. I just, I'm kind of a sucker for eye test and, what AJ showed us developmentally over the course of his college career, as short as it was, and under circumstances that were trying for him and for BYU, where they lost their second best scorer on that team as they were approaching the NCAA tournament, and what that delivered in terms of an uptick in responsibility, in load, in focus on AJ, and he was up for the moment. So yes, there's a tiny bit of recency bias, and by contradistinction, we never really saw the awesome Darryn Peterson. What was the awesome Darryn Peterson stretch? He had moments, he had halves, he had a great half, in fact, I think against BYU, where he had 20 points in the first half, a dynamic scorer, a dynamic athlete. But why would you take with the number 1 overall pick a guy that visited upon himself a bunch of questions? It wasn't the rest of us watching and saying, oh, I don't know, I have the questions about Peterson and his fitness for the league were a function of his own doing, and some combination of the inability for he and his folks, his representation, to be on the same page as the Kansas program and what was all in his own best interest in that relationship tended to look like it was an issue. And then what came out afterwards, which is this idea that he was taking a creatine supplement that was directly impacting his effectiveness on the basketball floor. I can't. Are we allowed to curse on this? I don't remember. I won't curse. What the heck are we doing, guys? What the heck are we talking about? This is the most important moment of your entire basketball career, Darryn Peterson. It's not time for experiments. The Kansas program is paying you a giant check, and the whole point of it is for you to be in the spotlight as often as possible with a program that is a blue blood program that is always in the spotlight. And the whole point is this recruiting trip that you are on to enter the NBA. What are we doing? Well, it's not time to self-sabotage. It's not time to experiment with supplements. It's not time to give the appearance of being in fights with your program over minutes. If you don't want to take the check and play for Kansas, then don't do it. Go play abroad or something. It's totally fine. He would have been better off playing in Europe this past year. Nobody would have had the spotlight on him in this manner. I think he did himself a disservice.
Yeah, I agree with your point, House. It kind of reminds me of that kid that goes to school and just ready to leave as soon as the first bell rings. It just seemed like college wasn't in the plan for Darryn Peterson. He just wanted to go straight to the league, which, okay, I understand, but at the end of the day, you're getting paid NIL. How much of a gap is there between Dybantsa and Peterson, House? Is it 1A, 1B, or is it 1-2 to you?
Oh, no, I think it's 1A, 1B. Peterson, the credentials that he amassed over his high school career, all the international competition success that he had, and his ability to play the two. I think he could play the three some as well. The caliber of athlete that he showed us, the flashes of his ability to explode to the basket. I'd love to see a little bit more consistent 3-point shooting, but that we're quibbling. I don't think that there is an enormous gap between those two guys in terms of you're measuring out a ceiling here, and the situational fit is really the part of the calculus as well. But I don't think it's like the Dybantsa separated himself from Peterson because Peterson was his own undoing.
It's a good point. And I view it as a 1A, 1B thing right now. Like, I don't think I'd be upset. I'd be ecstatic to get Peterson as well. And at this point, I feel like I trust Winger and Dawkins to do their proper evaluations to decide if this kid is indeed right for the number 1 overall pick. So, like, are you kind of in the same camp that if they make that decision to go Peterson number 1 overall, you can get over some of your concerns because you feel like the front office has done the due diligence necessary to make this decision?
Yes, and they've earned that benefit of the doubt. All of the draft picks that those guys in charge of this Wizards organization have made have been sound picks. You could quibble on around the edges. Nobody had Cedric Coward inside the top 8, right? There were some folks, outliers. If you want to quibble and say Cedric Coward might have been more effective for this Washington team than Trey Johnson, we'll see Trey Johnson ultimately, right? Average over 12 points in his rookie year in what was really, you can charitably characterize his rookie season in this Washington context of losing. Really hard to suss out what kind of player he's going to be, but he looks like a guy that can penetrate, and certainly the shooting was there, the work ethic was there. But like, you could do that kind of quibbling if you want with their draft picks. But when you get Keyshawn George in the teens, when you get Will Riley in the 20s, when you even Bub Carrington has showed us, that they traded, part of the Denny trade included return that translated into Carrington. Carrington is an NBA player as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, Alex Sarr. I mean, I really feel like we stole something in that draft by not having to deal with the decision between Stephon Castle and Risashe. I'm ready to give those guys a benefit of the doubt, whatever direction they want to go.
Quickly, House, wanted to get your thoughts on UNC's Caleb Wilson. I think he's going to be really good when it comes to the potential of him being a really good two-way player, but I've seen some people say that the Wizards should take him at 1, but should consider it. I think he would go 1 if it was the 2024 draft, but your overall thoughts on Wilson?
Yeah, I love Wilson. I think he's incredible. I think all of the assessments, the comps that people are making, they feel very sound to me. He is an explosive athlete. He is a dynamic athlete. All of those words that try and capture a guy that leaps off the screen at you because of the variety of ways that he can score and the athleticism on the defensive end. It would be a really interesting discussion if he hadn't gotten hurt and if he had somehow carried UNC, a little bit further, if they had somehow miracle run into the NCAA tournament and he got those bright lights. That might be an interesting conversation. It's a little bit, kind of easier to just go ahead and focus on AJ, but I think Wilson's incredible, and I think he's going to be a great NBA talent.
Yeah, I wonder if Hubert Davis would still have his job if he didn't get hurt is something that I actually wonder about as well. When we come back, what happens with Anthony Davis this season? Does he play for the Wizards? Does he trade at the deadline? Or does he just kind of ride this thing out? Answers to that and what the ceiling might look like for this team next year. That's next. The NBA postseason is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep their fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag, and with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are plenty of nights when you're a Wizards fan, especially when your team just stresses you out. Hopefully a lot less of that in the future. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert right in that moment. Probably like after when Bam dropped 83 in the Wizards. I was like, yeah, DoorDash, McDonald's, whatever I need right now to deal with whatever that was at that time. But we got the first overall pick, so who cares at this point? Those late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure that you are prepared. Snacks, cups, drinks, whatever you need, even a phone charger for your friend whose phone is always dead. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. House, before I get to this actual serious Wizards-related question I have about next season, I listened, of course, to Bill Simmons religiously, and of course I had to listen when the Wizards win the lottery. I know you're on there. You were practically having an orgasm on there. But
hey now!
Anyways, Bill Simmons made the point that the Wizards have never won a lottery when there's an awesome player to get. Does he not think John Wall is an awesome player? Was he just trying to rage bait you, or what was up with that?
There's always an inclination to throw shade. It's part of the healthy rivalry, the healthy competition that goes all the way back to our college days. When I arrived on campus at the College of the Holy Cross in lovely Worcester, Massachusetts, at that time, the Washington sports scene was still pretty competitive and had a leg up on the Boston sports scene. The Redskins were very good during my college era. The Baltimore Orioles were still pretty competitive in that time. And, the Wizards were always they were the Bullets while I was in college. They were still, stepchildren to the Celtics, but the Caps were pretty live over that era. Since that experience, Boston sports ascended in a way that Washington couldn't keep up. Tom Brady will do that, and then the Celtics have another title in there. But there's just part of the healthy rivalry between two old buddies. That's
all right. I know I think he's too smart to make that comment in a serious manner. So that's good. I love Bill, by the way. So don't take it as a shade to him. But I wanted to ask you about Anthony Davis. There are plenty of Wizards fans that are in a absolute hurry to get this guy out of DC, which I don't agree with personally, but what do you see here? Is he a Washington Wizard to start next season?
To start next season. So do you mean the 2026-2027 season or the season that follows?
The 2026 season.
So possibly there are three moments of kind of accountability here. I do think ultimately it makes sense for Washington to move on from Davis, especially if he would like to move on. And part of the motivation there would be fulfilling an element of what CJ McCollum, God bless that man, described in terms of Washington being a destination, a place that's desirable for NBA players. If the organization can show an old head vet like Anthony Davis that it respects his wishes, that his representation, those guys touch a lot of tentacles out in the league. Anything that tends to reestablish Washington's reputation in the league as a desirable place, I support that. So that's just sort of a context. But there seemed to be kind of three moments here where Davis could move. The first would be before he plays a single game for the Wizards in the regular season, because one of these playoff teams right now playing in the NBA playoffs flames out. A team like the Boston Celtics, who had no answer whatsoever for Joel Embiid, nothing in the front court beyond Neemias Keita, and really the lack of size for that team was a problem for them. A team like the Orlando Magic, who so underperformed over the course of the regular season and then flamed out in the playoffs that they immediately fired their head coach and their best player, or Paolo, however you feel about him, not on the same page. It didn't seem like for the second half of the regular season. That team could use some toughness. That team could use, it previously had a defensive identity. Where did that go? Franz Wagner can't get healthy and stay on the basketball court. But so anyway, those are just examples of teams in the East. The same will be true of teams in the West looking for opportunities over the course of this summer as the draft occurs, and then as free agency kicks off in earnest. You might get an offer for a guy like Anthony Davis over the course of the summer that knocks your socks off. So you listen. The other moment, maybe Davis plays some of November and into the period in advance of Christmas. A lot of times teams come in with expectations, with an identity, and then they hit a rough patch, or there's an injury, and those teams look at themselves and say, we want to try and address this well before the trade deadline. We don't want to let the season go sideways immediately. So that's another kind of moment from that beginning of the season all the way up to kind of Christmas where you might see some trades. And then, of course, the trade deadline. And I think, if we can get Anthony Davis all the way healthy, motivated, he understands that he's basically auditioning for whoever his next team is. I'm perfectly comfortable with him playing games, in that time period all the way up to the trade deadline to help us fetch the best price available.
Until then, we'll just see more episodes of his prank show house. One last
you will see them. I will not.
One last question. With AD, Trae Young, and now the number one overall pick, how do you evaluate the floor and ceiling for this team next year?
Oh, that's a great question. They're very close to one another. If the team is healthy, and I feel like Coach Keefe is kind of an unknown quantity here because he was tasked with one kind of stewardship up to this moment. It's a very different kind of task in front of him entering this season. So this is the first season that there will be, I think, sort of genuine pressure on Brian Keefe. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some old heads come into the Washington situation, some former head coaches. You see on a lot of these playoff team benches, former head coaches sitting with the current head coach, right? And that hasn't been the case. I mean, obviously, I love David Vanderpool. I mean, I love the staff that Washington has assembled for a team in development mode. But if you're looking at a team where the expectation is to go win some basketball games, fortifying some of the support on the bench seems like it makes sense. To me, the floor and the ceiling, I would say like the reasonable floor to me is 38 wins, and the reasonable ceiling to me is like 46 wins, something in that class. And that's really realizing the potential of Keyshawn George. Is Keyshawn George going to come out and play 75, 76, 77 games? I sure hope so. It's realizing Trae Young in this new iteration of Trae Young, which is a guy that is in the pick and pop and is just putting Alex Sarr in dunk mode, right? We're having Alex Sarr come downhill off of Trae Young pick and rolls. We have Sarr, taking a significant step forward. We need Bilal Coulibaly to show us some of what he showed us over the last 6 weeks, which is he belongs he can't just be a defensive specialist. He has to knock down threes if he wants to stay in this league. They re-signed Vucevic. That is a good backup. You basically, I could go through every player and say they all need to be prepared to take that next step up. And that would be the pathway. But I don't think that there's any reason. There's no obvious, caution out there in terms of an inability for all those players to take a step forward under this new spotlight, under this new mandate, which is let's go win some basketball games.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. Mostly next year is all about evaluation for me. Who really impacts you winning basketball games? And then if you get the answers to some of those questions, maybe you consolidate some guys in the future when you feel like you're really ready to win. And not just win, but win big, which I think the organization will get to a point at some point where they get to the time for that. Real quick, before we get you out of here, the last time we had you on, the team had just traded for Trae Young. You said that the best move was probably to give him a contract extension. We've heard that's pretty likely going to happen. But then, like, 3 other things even more interesting than trading for Trae Young happened since then. Did the Wizards have the most interesting subplot in the entire NBA this year despite losing 65 games?
Well, the way that it turned out, I mean, look at the way the karma shook out. Yes, we gave up 83 points to Bam Adebayo, who will go down in NBA history as one of the top 400 scorers in the league. I don't know. But yeah, we were around a lot of very interesting things. I wish it wasn't the case, but Cade Cunningham got hurt in a Washington game and then had to miss a bunch of games with a lung. And that Detroit team showed a resilience. It kind of bolstered them. I think it propelled them into 60 wins for Detroit and this pathway to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. There are a lot of subplots around this bizarre Washington season, all of which culminated in the magnificent Sunday afternoon #1 lottery ping pong ball outcome.
It's
on
all we
top
needed.
of that, you didn't get fined either. I mean, you avoid getting fined in this league that's trying to tone down on tanking.
Well, I think part of that is because, I know that you could say it with, a smile on your face and feel like it's kind of a sideways compliment. Washington put a bunch of guys that were trying to compete for NBA time on the floor. And they did that, really starting in like February. And I think that's a fine way. Like all of those guys, none of those guys were out there dogging it. Those guys are competing for minutes in a league that only has 450 jobs. So, your Sharif Coopers, we talked about them all. Alondas, Juju, give them those guys some shine. I think is a legit and noble proposition.
Yeah, those guys will always be legends for me, and especially considering the fact that we've got the first overall pick, their services are greatly appreciated, and I wish them all of the best in the rest of the NBA career. I think all Washington Wizards fans can agree on that. Next year is definitely going to be a lot more fun. House, we thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. Love your insight and your passion, of course.
Anytime, boys. You call, I answer. Happy to be on it. We are all locked on the Wiz here.
Let's go, House. All right, that is Joe House from the Ringer Podcast Network. You can hear him on the Bill Simmons podcast, Ringer Gambling Show. There's a golf show you do as well. And I know PGA Championship is upcoming this weekend, right? So this is if you want to get some golf coverage, I'd recommend go check out House. What's the name of your golf show?
Fairway Rolling. Yes, Fairway Rolling on Netflix and on the Ringer Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts.
I mean, that's the best part about the Ringer stuff is you can literally just lay in bed, put on Netflix, and react live. That's what I did after the Celtics lost in the playoffs this year. I was like, oh yeah, lay in bed, watch Bill crash out about the Celtics.
Night. Night.
Oh, so good. A lot of fun today. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Wizards. Of course, be sure to check out the Locked On Everyday Club. Go to lockedonwizards.supercast.com. Add free episodes of the Locked On Wizards podcast. Members only Discord access to interact with AB and I. For now, that is our guest, Joe House. That's Abdullah Ayubi. I'm Ben Strober. Talk to you later, DC family.